Almost half of all newly built properties in the UK are sold as leasehold rather than freehold properties. If it's a flat, that may make sense. But an increasing number of new build houses are being sold as leasehold by developers. And some householders have found they're then tied into paying a ground rent that increases every year. Katrina Renton reports.
Andrew Henderson lives on a new build estate in Whalley near Clitheroe. In the last few months, he's realised the ground rent will double on his leasehold property every 10 years. When he bought it, he did have the option to buy the freehold at £4,500. I went to meet Andrew and his neighbours, Dan and Mark, to find out more.
Andrew.
Hi, nice to meet you, Andrew. Lovely to meet you.
So, would you like to come in?
That would be great. I'd love one.
Should we go outside?
We've been in the house now 5 years, and 6 months ago, Mark drew my attention to our to the lease and the possible problem with it. And when we dug into it, we found that we'd got a leasehold on the property that doubles in value every 10 years. Now, initially, that doesn't sound like a lot. It seems like a long time. But if you project it out over 40 years, we'll be paying about £10,000 a year in ground rent for the house. Obviously, if we want to ever sell the house, it's an onerous lease and it might put potential buyers off. It will certainly not help us achieve the full asking price of the house.
One of the neighbours did say that their property has fallen through because the potential buyer discovered the lease.
In this case, the developer, Taylor Wimpey, then sold the freeholds to a property management company, meaning if residents want to make alterations to their homes, they have to pay other fees. And the neighbours say that one tried to buy the freehold at a later date, but it had gone up almost 10 times in price. Andrew says this should all have been pointed out in the first place when they had the option to buy the freehold with their homes.
Because if it was, we'd have all bought it. We'd have all gone. We'd have found £4,500 and we'd have bought it, wouldn't we?
Absolutely.
Dan, was this something you were aware of when you were buying the house? What did they tell you?
No point was it brought up. No, at no point during that process were we informed of any of it. So it comes as a surprise, And obviously it's really disappointing, particularly things like having to pay money to make an alteration to your house. It's like owning a house but not owning a house. It's more like an actual lease. It's more like we're renting essentially than anything else, because of the prices.
We've all owned houses before with leaseholds that have gone up in value every year, but the leaseholds have typically been £10 a year and they might go up to £10.50.
Yeah.
We're not talking £150 to £300 to £600 to £1,200 to £10,000.
Yeah.
That's not an increase in line with anything.
And the fact is, we're not living in £1 million houses or anything. You know what I mean? These aren't extortionately expensive.
It's not Mayfair.
Properties. We're not in Knightsbridge. You know what I mean?
Katrina Renton reporting there. Well, Sebastian O'Kelly is trustee of the Leasehold Knowledge Partnership, which is a charity set up to try and raise awareness and understanding of the issues that arise with leaseholds. He's here in the studio. Good morning to you.
Morning.
And we should say we did ask to speak to Taylor Wimpey in the House Home Builders Federation. Neither wanted to speak. Taylor Wimpey do say they've stopped selling leasehold houses. Isn't the argument, Sebastian O'Kelly, that it's down to the buyer, that the buyer can say they don't have to go ahead and buy the leasehold?
Well, that would be true were it not for the fact that they've also bought these houses through the developer-recommended solicitor. They probably used the mortgage advisor based on the recommendation of the developer. So the whole sales process of these new builds is made almost as seamless and as easy as a kind of impulse buy at the end of a supermarket queue.
And would you argue that there is no justification for a leasehold on a house?
There's absolutely no justification for leasehold for a house unless the developer doesn't own the land in the first place. There's not much justification for a leasehold of a flat either. And you've got to remember that there's thousands of leasehold flat owners around the country who are paying very onerous ground rents as well. These onerous ground rents are a new development. It is anonymous murky investors, often offshore, hitching a ride at home buyers' expense through owning the freehold.
Now, the argument, though, for having a leasehold on a flat is that it's easier to manage a property, to manage with the money that you take. Are you saying that's just not necessary?
Well, it's not true, really. I mean, England and Wales have leasehold arrangements for flat. The rest of the world doesn't, including Scotland. England and Wales are out of step.
What do you think should be done about it?
Well, in the case of the leasehold houses, I think immediately the government should stop the Help to Buy scheme and cease the purchase of these leasehold houses with onerous ground rents. These people are trying to buy homes. Instead, the developers are creating an enriched freehold which they're flogging off to these anonymous investors. That could stop straight away. It's interesting that mortgage providers are now not issuing loans on these properties. So actually the developers in their greed and venality have created a mini housing crisis here which might involve about 100,000 people.
Now, the government has promised to consult on this, and it says that it will ensure that Help to Buy is not used for leasehold houses. So are we talking about a historical problem, I mean, given that, as well, I say that Taylor Wimpey's said they won't be doing it any longer?
Well, it's not that historical. You've got loads of other developers who are building and selling leasehold houses. It's very bad that the government wasn't alerted to this problem by their civil service, or indeed by the government quango, the Leasehold Advisory Service. And it's been a minnow like us who've had to blow the whistle on this.
So what should be done, though?
Well, leasehold houses should not exist. People are trying to buy a home. They should buy a home. It shouldn't be a sneaky creation of an investment asset class at their expense. The wider issue of whether leasehold should continue and be perpetuated in this country is another issue, really. But the rest of the world manages to arrange the ownership of flats in a far more harmonious and less exploitative way. I mean, I'll give an example. We have recently had a woman in central London who's just lost her flat. She owes £114,000 in legal costs for a £6,000 dispute. That should not be an issue coming up before the property tribunal. A woman should not lose a house because of a £6,000 debt.
Sebastian O'Kelly, thank you.